What's up, world? My name is Tarl Yarber with Fixated on Real Estate, and we are here once again on August 26th to bring you guys another super duper panel with the best, the most amazing people there are in specific expert topics every single week. This week, we're going to be focusing on sourcing deals, off-market properties, wholesaling, acquisitions, anything along those lines. That it comes to one of the biggest banes of the existence for most real estate investors, which is finding and sourcing quality deals. And we have some of the best people in the market when it comes to sourcing off-market deals on today's panel, and I'm looking forward to jumping into that. So jumping into it, once again, we're going to be talking about acquisitions, off-market properties, wholesaling, everything there is about generating leads and sourcing deals. And jumping into it, I get to introduce some of my favorite people there are. And I'm excited about this panel because I actually really like all these guys, right? Most of the time, I don't like any of them on any of our stuff, but these guys I like them a lot. And it's usually just me and Jay like being friends and like being like, why do we have these guys on here? But these guys are awesome. So let's give it up to Mr. James Daynard. James Daynard is the co-CEO of Heaton Daynard. He's based out of the Puget Sound area. James is the co-founder and managing partner at Heaton Daynard and Intrust Funding. As a seasoned real estate investor, James leads the development and execution of corporate strategies, marketing, and property acquisitions for Heaton Daynard Real Estate. His decade experience investing in multifamily, single-family units in the Puget Sound region has guided Heaton Daynard to more than $200 million in sales and 385 transactions just in 2017 alone. We got to update your bio to also say what's up with 1819. But
yeah,
you also own, how many units you got right now? 350, 250, something like that?
Say again?
How many units do you personally own right now? I can't
so we have about 400 doors in Seattle.
You got 400 doors in the Seattle area. You source all those doors pretty much your guys' self.
Yep.
Plus you also have clients like me where I buy deals from you. You're one of the best that I know in the entire market here. You're also on what Bigger Pockets podcast? It's like 300 and something or
338.
338. Cool. Let's check it out. Red Robin Waiter to millions or whatever it is, right? Then we have Cole Rude Johnson. This gentleman here, you can tell he is a seasoned professional by, if you're watching the video right now, you can look at his face and know that he's got to be at least 18, 19 years old, maybe tops. He's the grandson you always wanted. Cole Johnson is a third-generation real estate entrepreneur. He is the CEO of HelloPad and REI Upgrade. At age 19, he founded HelloPad, a wholesaling operation based out of Renton, Washington, that acquired and transacted, count this, over 100 wholesale deals in the last 3 years. He is 22 years old now, and he's done already 100-plus deals, which is freaking insane. So Cole recently founded REI Upgrade, a cloud-based CRM and service that specializes in helping real estate investors dominate the acquisition space. All of this and more by the age of 22. And he just bought a dope-ass car recently with all that money. So that
was Jimmy's money.
That was Jimmy's money. Yeah, I'll talk about that later.
All right. That's you want to buy things.
So Jay Scott, my best friend in the whole wide world, CEO and author at 123flip.com and also Bigger Pockets author and the bigger host of the Bigger Pockets business podcast. He's an entrepreneur, technologist, investor, and advisor. He's the author of 4 Bigger Pockets books, including the book on flipping houses, the book on estimating rehab costs, the book on negotiating real estate, and recession-proof investing. Real estate investors, and he's done all sorts of stuff. 400-plus deals since 2008, flipping, buying holds. Recently completed a fat syndication. How big is the apartment complex you guys just closed on in Houston?
152.
150, or you guys are closing on in Houston?
We're closing on in 2 weeks.
Got it. So sweet stuff, awesome, great things. You guys got questions here on Zoom, use the Zoom question Q&A box. Other than that, chat with us. We'll do our best to chat back. Let's jump into it. Format of this panel, we're going to quickly start with an update of what's going on with COVID. All of us were in this business pre-COVID. We're still in this business now during COVID and all the lockdowns and economic insanity that's happening in the world. So I want to start off with talking to James, right? I might mistakenly call him Jimmy every now and then because that's what his friends call him. But James Daynard, pre-COVID, you guys were crushing it with marketing and so forth. Since COVID, here in our area where you guys are right now, is there anything that you've changed in your business? What did you used to do and what do you do now compared to COVID when it comes to sourcing off-market deals? And if you can explain that in some detail.
Yeah, so, COVID's changed a lot of things. We're actually of the old school. How I kind of got in the business was knocking doors. It was simply getting a stack of leads that were, we narrowed down demographically that we wanted to chase. Used to bang a lot of doors. With COVID, we've actually stopped that completely. Ever since the shutdown, we just feel it's not the right way to do it. Plus, it's kind of a bad way to just get going on it. So we've switched to doing a lot of, we've had to switch a lot of our campaigns. Mailing, we mail a lot. Now we spend a lot less money on the leads. We're not mailing as much just because there's an oversaturation of mail. So we've actually leaned our marketing costs down by about 80%, and we've been able to increase the volume by about 100%. And that's just basically just straight calling a certain type of lead. We do a lot of cold calls, a lot of text messaging, and just kind of more virtual offers than anything else.
And you guys, do you guys still meet with sellers in person?
Yes, every seller we meet with in person, unless the person does not want to meet with us. It's just, we're like I said, I'm a little old school. We like to get in front of people. We like to walk through the property. We like to know our numbers. We like to figure out what their needs are, because a lot of times you can meet with somebody and find out that selling the house is just a byproduct of actually what they want to accomplish. And so meeting with that person, we get a higher conversion rate by meeting with them in person.
Okay. And we're going to jump into that a little bit more detail later. So you guys are just tuning in right now. We're going to be talking about off-market properties, sourcing deals, acquisitions, all that great stuff, specifically in this market right now with COVID going on. It is a different market than what we had pre-COVID. And we definitely, I know a lot of people are like, how do I get more deals, right? How does that happen? It's a hot market depending on where you live. So Cole, on the other spectrum, you run your business as well, and you've been in multiple markets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Besides just the Seattle market, what other markets have you sourced deals through and stuff?
We've been in Portland, Oregon, several different markets in California, Sacramento, Fresno. We've been in St. Louis, and a few other ones temporarily, but those are the ones that we actually stuck in for a while.
Got it. And so right now, since pre-COVID, how did you guys originally source deals pre-COVID? What was your main bread and butter for marketing, calling, all that kind of stuff?
So we still had kind of our main bread and butter, but we were stacking on more expensive stuff like PPC, Facebook ads, pay-per-click, Facebook ads. We were doing some mail. And since COVID started, we completely cut pretty much everything besides texting and cold calling. And we cut our marketing costs from like 40 grand a month to like 7 to 10 grand a month. But then we've seen our revenue almost double, similar to James in that same time period. So we leaned out everything in terms of our team and our marketing, but our revenues doubled pretty much.
So you specifically now focus on calling and texting, right?
Yep.
So for those of you guys that aren't following, that are watching this right now, we'll dig into that more, what that actually means. And this is specifically about sourcing off-market properties direct to seller, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. So, now, on that note, Jay, you're going to help me be a panelist on this one, because both you and I, as far as I am aware, we don't actually go cold call. We don't direct mail right now in our personal businesses, correct?
I was up until COVID. We were doing a bunch of direct mail. We did a ton of direct mail up till 2014, stopped for a bunch of years, started again last year, and then stopped around COVID time. So I've done a lot, but these days I'm not doing any.
Got it. So yeah, right now I know on our business, we have our inside sales, but for the most part, that's kind of, we used to source through door knocking mainly. And that was the big portion that we would have our inside sales dude, Nate, do. And then now he's into cold calling and text messaging, but it's been a shift for sure on our side. But it's not our main focus. We usually work with wholesalers like these guys and stuff too, which we'll get into. So if you guys are watching this right now, let us know, like, how do you guys normally source your deals? So if you're watching us on Zoom or Facebook, type it in. How do you source your deals? We're curious about that. We'll dive into that some more. So I want to talk about right now, and if you guys are watching this, we're going to get into some nuts and bolts later, but I want to talk a little bit bigger picture stuff currently. So if you guys are dealing with, so James, let's go back to you. So you're dealing with sellers. You guys used to do a ton of direct mail. You guys still do some direct mail, right? But not much. Yeah. What has been your number one best performing marketing strategy for sourcing off market deals?
Since COVID or prior to COVID? Because it's actually changed.
Let's talk about prior to COVID.
So prior to COVID, we always look for a symptom of distress or need to sell, which is going to be, so that's always been our kind of top priority is we check on probate leads, because a lot of times people are inheriting homes that they don't want to deal with, right? They just need a lot of work. They want a quick cash sale, or it's a bunch of heirs that want to kind of sell the property quickly. Things like abatement liens, like things where show up on title that show that the seller doesn't take care of their asset, right? It could be a property that has an abatement lien because there's a bunch of garbage there, right? And the city's finding them. It could be a utility lien. It could be a foreclosure. So anything that shows we focus more on symptoms of reasons of being behind or a reason to sell. After COVID, what we really have focused to is, I think a lot of people are frozen right now. Like the response rate has gone down, but the people that are responding are actual sellers. And the people that we're seeing that are maybe having a little bit more foresight in the market is investors that own property that have had a rental property for 5 to 10 years and it's not performing at that well for them. Their cash flow is low. Maybe it's in rough repair. They don't have the money to put into it, or they don't want to take their cash reserves going into possible economic downturn and put it into the asset. So those people have been selling a lot. They've been a lot more favorable for us for just reaching out. It's an investor to investor transaction. They understand the numbers, and then it's time to sell an asset off at that point. And a lot of investors in general are just selling stuff off. I'm one of them where I'll be like that. I'll have a property I think I'll keep forever. And just like that, something will happen in the market. I decide to sell.
That happened to us. I mean, we're right now, I'm never selling any of my rentals, but we literally just put some on the market and so forth, just because market's super high, interest rates are low. Let's dump some of these non-performing, or the ones that are only cash flowing like $200 a month or whatever it might be.
We've bought a number of deals from absentee landlords, so landlords that don't live in the same state as their properties over the last month or two. They're very concerned about the rent moratoriums. They're very concerned about where the rental market's headed with people losing their jobs. And a lot of them, especially the ones that don't own a large portfolio, they might own 1 or 2 or 3 properties. We actually invest a lot in military towns. And so there are a lot of people that go into the military and they move from base to base to base. And every time they move to a base, they buy a house. And when they leave, they keep it and they rent it out. And so we find a lot of these landlords that own one-offs in these towns that they just don't feel like managing anymore. And we've picked up a lot of our deals from these absentee landlords the last month or two.
Yeah, 90 to 95% of our deals right now are coming from the same exact thing. Before COVID, we would shotgun blast everyone pretty much, and we were super kind of loose with it. And that's the biggest thing we've changed. We got more targeted. We said, this is what we're going to go after. And I think that's what's let us double our revenue with cutting all the costs that we cut.
And it's interesting because those were the sellers that were the terrible responses 2 years ago. For the last 2 years, it's been after they call you and say, yeah, I want $1 million for my property. It's worth 500.
Because they're so used to getting hit up.
Let's back up for a second. Let's be specific in case we lost somebody. You guys are talking about absentee owners, like non-owner occupant owners, right?
Yep.
And we used to make fun of as people that we'd be like, you go to a guru seminar sales place or whatever it might be, and they say, if you want to get into wholesaling off-market properties, go get a non-owner occupant list, right, with high equity and mail to them, and you'll make lots of money. And we'd be like, everybody's freaking doing that. That's dumb. And then sure enough, if you had a bunch of rentals, you're getting cards all the time and email, you're getting hit up all the time, and you're like, give me a price that's make me walk, right? $1 million, and even though the house is worth 500. So now what I'm hearing you say is that, no, that actually might be the target market you need to go hit now. And can you guys explain that a little bit more, what your experience is with that so far?
Well, with us, at least, we've seen now those people actually have a motivation to sell, where before most of them, they've been around for a while. They're experienced landlords. Obviously, you still have the ones that were selling and weren't, but so we're running into even the experienced landlords right now who are just like, hey, I'm done. I want to retire. I'm fed up with this. And there's just more motivation. There's more reasons that they're selling now, whereas before, they were pretty much happy to sit and ask for $1 million, especially in a market like Seattle. They're just like, yeah, if you pay me 3 times what the Zillow value is, I'll sell to you. That's usually what that response would have been pre-COVID for us.
And do we think that's market specific? Is it just because maybe if we're going to talk like let's say California non-owning occupant landlords, or Seattle non-owner occupant landlords, or Portland non-owner occupant landlords? All 3 of those markets are, for lack of a better word, insane right now when it comes to landlord laws, and also lockdowns, riots, dumb stuff, right? All these things. Do we think that because we're in that side of the world, at least we are, the three of us are, that side of the world, that we're seeing a lot of non-owner occupant landlords going like, I'm out, I'm done with this place, it's crazy, I don't know what's going to happen, sell this thing? Or will that be other markets as well, right? Or markets that are more landlord friendly and so forth, or what?
Well, I think every market has its own reason, right? Like Seattle, for example, people are selling stuff in Seattle because landlords don't feel protected and they feel like they are the enemy and or there's a lot of difficulties and it's not worth the hassle, so they sell off their asset. Other markets, though, each city and neighborhood all has their own issues. If from as far as I know, like parts of the Midwest, COVID's really affected some of those rental incomes, and that's another reason, right? Is their demographic who they're renting to, they're at a 50% non-pay. They're not paying at 50% of the rent, whereas in Seattle it's only 10%, or at least on our portfolio, it's been about 5 to 10%. In other markets, though, like maybe St. Louis or, I mean, it could even cities that maybe aren't that are a little bit more pro landlord, the tenants still can't make their payments. And so those are another reasons where people get nervous. They have their whole retirement in a building. They're dependent on that cash flow. And if that cash flow doesn't come in, they would rather get into cash because it does hedge against any kind of recession to where they can kind of have a little bit of peace of mind at that point. So, and then one of the other reasons I think there's a lot of response in any market is a lot of the investors that do respond back have been through 2008, 9, and 10.
Mm-hmm.
And they have that shock factor of, and same with me. Like when people call me on a property that maybe is not that fixed up, I'll listen to the offer now. Whereas before I'd be like, hey, I'm going to fix this and finish it and get it to market. So it's just that 10-year shock that's in any market, right? Any investor went through that across the nation. So I think it will work in every market, but every market's got a different reason.
And here's the other thing to keep in mind is that there are different types of landlords. A lot of us might be thinking about professional landlords, guys and gals that own 5 or 10 or 20 properties. But there are a lot of people out there that are landlords that they don't think of themselves as a landlord. They moved out of their primary residence and didn't sell it for some reason. Or they got married and one of the spouses like kept their old residence as a rental. And these aren't people that think of themselves as landlords. They think of themselves as people that just happen to have a rental property. And when the market's going up and renting's easy and rents are going up, it's easy to just say, well, I'm making more money this year than I was last year. And it's not very difficult. I'm going to keep it. But as soon as like something happens where they get concerned about a rent moratorium, they get concerned about rents dropping, they can get concerned about values dropping or flattening out. As soon as that happens, they're just like, well, I didn't really think about keeping this property in the first place. If there's an opportunity to sell it and get out now, I will. And so typically when we pull a list, like a direct mail list for absentee owners, we'll sort it and we'll see which of those owners own one property versus multiple properties. And we do a lot better with those owners that happen to own one property as opposed to the owners that own 2, 3, 5, 10 properties. So keep in mind that when you're pulling those lists, it's not a homogenous list of landlords. Some are professional, some are reluctant, some are just happen to fall into being a landlord.
What do you guys think about that, Cole?
Well,
I think that's smart. I think that's super smart because kind of like I was saying, even pre-COVID, a lot of the people you're talking to when you're marketing to a list like non-owner occupied are going to be more experienced, whether they have 1, 10, 20, 30 properties. I mean, there's the serial guys up here that everyone runs into that have 30 properties. They're going to waste a lot of people's time because they'll hear out offers, but they want an absurd amount of money for their home. So I think that's an awesome strategy for people, especially as they're starting out, is to narrow that list down to people that own 1 or 2 or 3 properties. And we don't do that personally, but I'm going to look into doing that. It's super smart.
I've got a question for Cole and James, because here's something that I've seen as well. And I'm curious your experience. So just with all the competition these days from other investors for off-market deals, I mean, I mail to somebody and I get told, yeah, but if they actually do call me, which is rare, I've gotten 30 other letters from 30 other investors. So it's hard to really get noticed. What we're finding is that going into smaller towns, like whatever town you happen to be investing in, drive 30 minutes out and focus on a smaller town that's a little bit further out. There tends to be less competition. The sellers are hearing from investors a lot less. And so we're having a lot of success just kind of going into the tertiary markets as opposed to the primary and secondary markets. I'm curious if you guys have seen that too, or if you're doing the same thing.
We've seen something similar where we're still doing volume in our normal areas, but we've pushed down south more into Olympia, which is an area not as much wholesalers are down there doing volume business. And I would say we're doing a solid 2-3 deals a month just in Olympia right now, with barely spending anything. So I definitely would agree with that.
Yeah. We're actually doing the opposite. The reason being is like in Seattle, it's the climate has gotten very difficult to get construction done. And in like development sites, everything takes a long time, which and people are kind of hedging against some sort of recession. So they don't want those big projects. And so what it's done is it's kind of the massive competition that used to be there for the bigger projects is not there. And we can have a very logical conversation with the seller. And there's usually not as many people now because most wholesalers are focusing on those outside markets because they're cheaper, they're easier, there's more client base that wants them. And so we're actually doing the opposite and going into the more expensive areas and being able to pick out a lot bigger discounts, which as a wholesaler, the bigger discount you get, the bigger the fee. And so our fees have gone, even though we're doing about the same amount of deals inside the core neighborhoods, we've doubled the profit because there's just less competition. And so we're actually targeting more of the trickier stuff because we want to go where the other wholesalers are kind of avoiding right now.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit later too, because that's a little bit more advanced strategy. Because if you're just starting out, maybe you won't be as successful in that particular strategy. But for there's people that are listening to this right now that have been doing this business for a while that are like, no, it's too overcrowded in that market. Let's go to the tertiary markets outside. And you're like, well, everybody else is doing that, so let's go even harder into the more popular market, just because other people are getting out. So
yeah, like Seattle, like multifamily in Seattle was terrible to try to get off-market deals on like 2 years ago because they would sell it like a 3 cap. Now, financing's tough. There's tenants not paying rent. A city that isn't friendly to the landlord. Those sellers are dumping off at they're giving a lot bigger discount on those properties because they know their asset isn't as desired anymore. Mm-hmm. And so we've actually doubled down on that rather than go the other way.
By the more complicated stuff, Jimmy, you're talking about just like, what do you mean by that exactly?
Well, where it's tougher financing, like if all the wholesalers are going after the one deal where everyone can get a loan on it, it's a simple renovation, it's lower risk, you can turn it in 3 months rather than 9 months. Everybody's kind of competing against that. Whereas most people that buy large multifamily are a little bit more educated investor, and the educated investor is being a lot more cautious on the numbers right now. I know I am. I know Tarl is. I think Jay is as well. Guys that buy a lot of property. But when I see opportunities when demand goes down, and so we focus on mailing where the demand's down in good neighborhoods because your typical buyer that's overpaying is now no longer overpaying. So it got rid of that demographic of the competition.
And I think we just kind of hit on like probably one of the biggest takeaways for anybody that's listening right now, especially for the newer investors, is that there's no right answer. I get asked all the time, should I be cold calling? Should I be direct mail marketing? Should I be driving for dollars? Should I be going on the MLS? And my answer is, it really depends, because what might work, as we just saw, what I'm saying has been working for me isn't working for James, and may or may not be working for Cole and Tarl. And every area is going to be different. The different types of lists you pursue, if you go after pre-foreclosures, that might work differently in your area than if you go after absentee landlords, which might work differently than if you go after retail sales, whatever. I mean, it's basically, it boils down to don't assume that what's working for somebody else in some other market is necessarily going to work for you in your market, which kind of leads me to the next big point of when we talk about off-market acquisitions, testing is a huge thing. And I'd love to hear from Cole and Jimmy, like your thoughts on testing and how you, and when I say testing, what I mean is, let's say you're doing direct mail, you might try a yellow envelope this week, and next week to the same sellers try a red envelope or a first class stamp versus a bulk mail stamp, or typewritten versus handwritten, just trying different things to see what's going to work for your target market. What kind of testing do you guys do? And what do you recommend for the people that are out there that like really need to start thinking about testing?
And let me preface this though, like on a side, so we delineate the two things. So Cole, you have a different form of testing that I know you guys have done versus what Jimmy's done. So I want to make sure that we don't mix it up too much. So I'm going to start with Cole right now. So Cole, you don't do direct mail, right? For instance, right? But
Nope.
one of the things, so if you guys don't know Cole, which most of you guys probably don't, right? But if you guys don't know Cole, Cole's not the one on the sales call with his team. He's the guy who built out incredible KPI, key performance indicators, software, all that kind of stuff, and managed the shit to make the phones ring, right? So that way his inside sales team can actually go close the deals, right? So he had to do a whole bunch of testing on that side of the equation. So can you go a little bit into like on that note, and then we'll go to Jimmy for like direct mail, because I know Jimmy, you've done a ton of direct mail and you've also done a lot of testing, and I've seen it, right? I know you guys have tried a ton of stuff with what works, what doesn't. So we'll get in that for sure. But Cole, can you deep dive a little bit more on like the KPIs, what's important to track, like what has and hasn't worked specifically on cold calling, texting, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so our business is so systems heavy. Like we have a really good sales team, but we're so systems heavy. So most of our testing comes down to the best way to optimize our system. So what we don't really look at with like texting or cold call, we're not really tweaking our script all the time or tweaking our messages all the time. It's more, what are the processes around our cold calls and texts that give our sales guys the best chance to optimize every lead that comes in, and looking at the return on investment for each lead. So like
you're talking about like being more effective and efficient.
Yeah, so we do tests, like we're always tweaking our system to find the most efficient way to run it, but we're not really changing. Like with direct mail, when we would do it, we would tweak, the color of the envelope or the stamp on the envelope or the type of the card. It's much harder to do that with kind of cold seller marketing we're doing right now, where that doesn't really have as much impact. But what does have as impact is making the system optimized so our sales guys can get a text and respond within 2 minutes instead of 7 minutes. Because we found that you wait any longer than 3 minutes and people feel like it's not an authentic conversation. So little things like that is what we're always testing and tracking with our KPIs through our CRM, is making sure that on every single marketing campaign, we're optimizing all those little things like response time, character count, like responding to someone with 2 sentences instead of 5. So they feel like they're talking to a human being and not a robot. So we're super systems heavy, but finding a way to humanize that whole system as best as possible is what we're really focusing on right now.
Yeah, and that's huge. And a lot of people miss that. They're like, what do I type though? What do I say? What do I do? Right. And you're like, you're just doing.
It doesn't matter as much. What matters is the consistency. So obviously you want a decent message, but you don't have to dive too deep into every single word and each sentence in your messages. It's more about making sure that the systems around that are built out to where you can actually take, no matter how many leads you produce, if you don't have a system to handle those leads, you're never going to do a deal. Right. So you want to make sure you're able to handle those.
Yeah. And I want to, on one, you mentioned something on like going, how can you respond to somebody in 2 minutes instead of 7 minutes? Right. And I'm going to pick on all you realtors out there right now, right? How, if somebody calls you, the average return phone call, I think for most realtors nationwide is like 2 days or whatever. Like, so that's why people don't get their leads, right? So it's that how fast can you respond? If somebody's ready to sell or somebody's ready to do something now, how quickly can you serve them, right? In some capacity. Yep. That's what you guys focus on top of everything else. And then the systems and processes that go with it. We'll dive into that a little bit more later, because effectiveness and efficiency is so important not to waste time right now. And we were talking about this yesterday, where wholesalers or acquisitions people, they go too far down the rabbit hole on the lead that'll never become a deal because it's too super complicated, but they're excited because they have somebody they're talking to as a seller, right? It's that 10-acre wetland property that could be subdivided into 30 lots, right? After 6 years of, working with the city or whatever it might be. But so Jimmy, going back now to Jay's original question, right? What have you guys done, especially like on the direct mail, because direct mail works, right? Yeah. So what have you guys done for A/B testing, all that kind of stuff?
So, I mean, the one most important thing about testing is if you come up with a plan, stick to that plan though, consistently for 3 to 6 months before you switch it, because you can over test. And someone will send out a mailer or we used to do this. We sent a mailer, but we didn't get a good response, so we're going to switch our mailer. No, what you want to do is at least run that campaign for 3 to 5 times, right? And see, because it's like Cole said, it's all about consistency. And if you keep switching and testing different ways, all you do is break your system each way, and you don't actually get to see what happens. So first thing is consistency. If you come up with a campaign, do it at least 3 to 5 times, and then evaluate the results. Use a CRM system to trap your results though. That's another thing that we made a big mistake on 3 years ago. At one point we were sending $700,000 to $800,000 a year in mail. and we had no way to track. The only way for us to track the results was to look at deals closed and where the source came from and the cost per deal, right? And that works on a surface level, but that didn't tell us how to narrow that $800,000 a year down to $200,000 highly efficient. Like, what's the response rate? What are we wasting time on? And when we were spending that much money, the market was so hot, it was working, right? We're spending $700,000, it was bringing in $2.5 million in assignments, and so it would work out mathematically. But once the market changes, our cost went to 90% very, very quickly. And so now what we've done is every campaign we do, we look at the results, we determine them, we let the campaign always run all the way through. And then what we've done is the stuff that's expensive, and mail is one of the most expensive. I think buying leads, SEO, and mail are the three most expensive ways that you can get leads. What we've done is we've just switched the campaign, because mailing does work, but we get a very small demographic. Like, we just mail probates, or right now we'll mail, we're mailing red tagged investors, right? And cold calling them, because it's a very small list for us to kind of grasp the results. And we know there's always deal flow in there. So, but
just that goes back to like a point when I've seen a lot of the more professional off-market companies. You have the two buckets, right? You have the groups that's like, mail everybody because we have the budget and we just know that we'll make money, right? And then you have the ones that are like, let's get hyper targeted so that we get the highest return on our dollar for marketing efforts, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's what you were just saying. It's like, get more targeted, target your list, target your area, target your geographic location, target your target, right? And I've seen from watching other wholesalers and off-market marketers who become super successful and also have less stress in their lives, they just get more targeted, right? And they have a list, instead of 100,000 leads, they have 1,000, right? But they're not just some blanket 1,000. They're like targeted, scrubbed. This is what we're looking at, kind of a situation, and they go after them hard and keep touching them until they get something to work, right? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. Basically, spend the stuff that costs the most. Don't just avoid it, because it's like right now we always mail probates, because probates, we know that there's probably a 7% chance we're going to get a deal out of that if we mail it consistency. So the cost, we know we can track all at that point. But yeah, just whatever campaign you come up with, stick to it for at least a 3-month period, and then make your, review the results and then switch it accordingly.
Piggybacking on that, like an example of that is with our texting, like how much texting we do. For the first 2 months, I don't think we did a deal from it, and now it's a 10x return every single month.
Yep.
So you got to stick with it at least 3 to 5 months to really let it.
And then, a big thing with that too, just want to throw out there as a disclaimer, right? You got to know the laws for texting, do not calls, all that kind of stuff, or use a service that knows that stuff, right? So just throwing it out there, you can get in a lot of trouble if you are not following those local laws for your area or areas that you're marketing in. So that's very, very important. We're not going to deep dive into that too much. Cole has had experience with that, so which he's learned from, and he's moved on with his life, right? And wrote the check. And then but Cole, like something that Jimmy just said, and then Jay's mentioned before, and then I know you're an expert at this. You brought this up to me before when you were in St. Louis, where you were getting deals when you guys were doing St. Louis. But because you weren't like super hardcore tracking your KPIs as well as you could, key performance indicators, you weren't realizing that, okay, you're doing a $5,000 wholesale fee, but it costs you $4,000 to generate that lead, right? Or something along those lines. And so you might be getting more deals, but the cost, if you're not tracking your numbers, the cost does not outweigh the reward in some capacity, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was just in markets like that where our fee was, $5 to 10 grand a deal, you have way less margin for error. So when we weren't tracking stuff, especially in those markets, we weren't too familiar with them. So we were losing money on the disposition side because we didn't have strong buyers. We were losing money on the marketing side because we were brand new, and then losing money by just not tracking everything. And yeah, I mean, in my mind, it was just sexy to do as many deals as possible and just keep that number going up of deals per month. But it put so much stress on our sales team just because, how many deals in a month does a sales guy have to do at a $5,000 spread per deal to make a good living? It was a lot. So, and we weren't tracking that. So eventually I was like, this boat's going to sink, or we're going to have to start tracking everything. And then when we did start tracking all of that, we pulled back, especially during COVID. We pulled back just to the local markets here.
And I want to jump into that a little bit more here in a bit, because this is for any of you guys brand new sourcing deals, and this is one of the messages I've heard, all of us say all the time, is like, know your numbers. Like, you got to know your numbers. You listen to anybody that talks about off-market marketing that knows what they're doing, even just deals, right? Just anything. If you're flipping houses, buying rentals, know your numbers. It's across the nation. Like, it's everything, right? So if you sent out 1,000 mailer pieces, how many calls did you get back on that? How many deals did you close? How much did it cost? Like, where were they? What was the best lead source? Like, track that all in there. And if you're just starting out, it's easier than it seems to be able to track that stuff, because you're probably not dumping $40,000 a month in marketing, right? And you're probably dumping $1,000 or $500. So on that, we're going to go into that more detail, because I want to talk about too, right, which we're going to get into, is that, Cole, and I don't get into it right now, but you just got $175,000 assignment fee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you guys, I didn't stutter, right? Cole just did $175,000 assignment fee. So this stuff works. But before we get into that, can you guys give a piece of advice for people just starting out and don't have $700,000 a year to pay on marketing, and so forth, Jimmy? But if somebody's just starting out, what are some cost-effective things that somebody's starting out that they can do to go generate leads, whether it's driving for dollars, what cold calling, whatever it might be, that might be an effective thing with somebody on a budget to go start generating leads and potentially getting deals?
I'm always going to be the guy that just a cold call, just pick up the phone yourself, because that's going to get you used to rejection. That's going to get you used to getting over your nerves of talking to people. So when you actually come across opportunities, you'll be ready to roll. So I think cold calling yourself when you're getting started is the absolute best way to get into real estate, because you're going to have to know how to talk to people both on the seller side and when you're dispositioning stuff. So I think it builds that confidence that you need to last long term.
We all start with no money, right? Or at least I did.
Yeah.
And the cheapest ways that I know to kind of do this is work with a title company, and they can get you really cheap lists. They're not expensive to go through your title company to get a title list. And then cold calling and door knocking. The only thing you're risking at that point is your time, your cell phone minutes, and your gas. And those things work, right? And you could put together a campaign just consistently cold calling as long as you have the time. It's going to cost you very little money. You're talking about less than $1,000 a month to just cold call, and then getting the right list from the title company.
Or even way less than $1,000 if you wanted to.
Yeah, what I tell my guys is if you're not getting deals, you're not working. It's not because the marketing is not working, it's because you're not working. Because you can always find an opportunity out there if you have the right data set.
We were buying lists from the title company for like $5 when we first started.
Yep.
So it's dirt cheap. Yeah.
It might not be the best data, but you can use it. So if you especially know how to scrub it. Jay, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, no, so I think these guys hit the nail on the head. I'll say a couple things. One, just to repeat what these guys said, no matter what you're doing in life, whether it's real estate or owning a business or whatever, you've got to know sales. You don't have to be a sales guy. I'm not a sales guy, but you got to be comfortable with sales, especially before you have a lot of money and experience. Taro always talks about 3 things in this business: time, money, and experience. You don't need all 3, but you need at least one of them. And in this case, if you don't have the money or the experience, you have to spend your time working and learning. Focus on sales. And then the other thing is building relationships. I mean, real estate is a relationship business. So if you don't have the money to go out and put together an expensive marketing campaign, and you don't have the experience to do things yourself, go find somebody that's been successful. Go talk to Cole or talk to somebody like James, and say, hey, I've got time. I want to learn. What can I do to help you and also help myself? And go start making calls for other investors, and go start knocking on doors for other investors. Ask for a commission. Ask to split a deal if you get a deal. Spend the time if you don't have the expertise or the money.
Love that.
All right, so we're going to get into the $175,000 assignment fee that Cole just acquired and used to buy a fancy new car with instead of. But and I want to learn more about how that worked, and then we're going to get into the buyer side. So, like, I'm a buyer, right? Jay's a buyer. Jimmy's a buyer. Cole is becoming a buyer, but as far as buying from wholesalers, but I don't want to get into that a little bit more. What best practices would be to be a buyer, and also to, like, if you're a wholesaler selling to a buyer.
Yeah.
Before that, all of us that are on this panel right now, and a lot of you guys that are watching us live, we have a little over almost 350 you guys watching us live right now from different capacities. A lot of us are going to the virtual Big Badass Real Estate Wealth Expo happening September 18th and 19th. This is normally a live event, but it is virtual only, and we just figured out a whole bunch of cool shit to make this thing probably the best virtual event for real estate investors out there this year. It's September 18th and 19th, 2020. If you're watching us right now, you guys are going to get a special discount code if you haven't bought your ticket yet. Go to badassexpo.com. If you guys don't know what it is, we're going to have 40 plus presentations, sessions, speakers. Jay's going to be there. James is there. Cole is there. You're going to be able to network with these guys virtually. We actually have been able to figure out how you can virtually network with other people. Like, not like, let me send you a text message. I mean, you could set up your own sessions like this, you, the attendee, and you can set that up through our community session, our community board, and start inviting people that are in Kentucky, Kansas. You want to talk about off-market properties in St. Louis, right? And start creating your own networking sessions to work with each other and meet people like us. We're going to put Jay up there so that you can sit there and network with them virtually as much as possible. Every single one of you could talk to Jay personally as long as he wants to. So, but that's going to actually happen at our event, plus all the sessions, real networking. We'll also have a virtual exhibitor hall that you guys can interact with all the exhibitors, resources, and so forth. It is September 18, 19. It is not your normal virtual conference by any means whatsoever. It is going to be up another level, more so because the technology is out and we have paid for it. So it's $149. If you can't show up in person, that's okay. You get all the recordings. And also the virtual networking portion is going to stay open for a little while prior to and after the actual event. So you guys continue to use that. You also get, like I said, all the recordings. There's raffles of prizes. A portion of all the proceeds of the ticket sales also go to the Travis Mills Foundation. It's a cause that we really support. If you're watching us right now, FORE 26 will give you 10% off your ticket until Friday night only. So FORE 26 is your discount code if you haven't gotten it yet. We are going to up the prices of the entire event not too long from now. So check it out. Last but not least, here's some of the awesome speakers, and then we're going to get into that $175K assignment fee. Brandon, yes, he's there. Ken McElroy, if you don't know him, 10,000 units, author, ABC Real Estate Investing. Kathy Fecky, one of my favorite people out there, syndication. Thatch was just on the Bigger Pockets podcast. Check him out. Dave Van Horn, most of them know him. Ashley Wilson, Sterling White. He's on all of his stuff. Leica, Steve, he's all over Facebook, right? Jay Scott is there. Tucker, David Green, there's Jimmy, Brian Murray. I skipped Ryan. All these people that you guys know and love that you've all seen on Bigger Pockets and other places.
I like how the three of us are all towards the bottom of the list. You got the Brandon, Turner, Kathy, and then you got all of us.
Yeah, well, we got the selling points at the top. Right? So, and unfortunately, just because of the way that we just added your wife, it's just because that's how it works. She got on the box. She's one of the last speakers we added so far. But yeah, I'll tell Serena to move her up more to the top here shortly. But I'm excited. These guys are going to be talking. I don't even know, but Cole, you're going to be talking more about analytics, KPI stuff, how to build out your off market. You're also going to be able to talk about your CRM that you have coming out too, that does all this stuff too, which is going to be kind of cool. Jimmy, have we even talked about what you're going to talk about?
No, I don't know yet. I'm just going to freestyle it.
And then Jay, Jay's going to talk. So, but make sure you guys get your tickets. I'm excited for it. Bigger Pockets is going to be helping out on it too. So looking forward to that too. All right. Cole, how long ago did you get a $175,000 assignment fee?
That deal closed I think end of July.
End of July.
Right.
So how did you get that deal? Tell me more about it. And how can somebody else get a $175,000 assignment fee?
So that deal was super, super unique. And those unique deals come up the longer you are in business and the more consistent you are and, showing up every day. But it was a $12 text lead that came into our system on a Thursday in April. And Mike, who's our sales manager, started texting the guy back and forth. He came in, he was like, I want $450,000 for my property. Mike pulled it up and he called me right away. He's like, dude, I don't know what's going on. Is this dude trying to scam us or something? Because this thing's worth $900, $950 when it's all said and done. And I was like, let's just go along with it for a little bit, see what happens. So 2 months later, they were talking for 2 months because the guy's a builder. He wasn't quite ready yet. So kind of end of June.
So this isn't just like some distressed seller. He's a builder. He owns a company. He invests in real estate.
Really, really smart dude. Yeah, he's doing Jimmy, I forget, it was like a 200 unit development he was doing in like SeaTac or something like that.
Yeah, he was building a big project, like a 6-year project.
Okay, yeah. Well, I don't know why Jimmy knows all about this deal, but I guess we'll find out. But so you were talking to this guy for 2 months, right? Okay, so 2 months, that happens.
2 months, talking to the guy for 2 months.
Follow up. That's the key thing, guys, if you're listening. That's following up, right?
Every single day. Every single day. Yeah, so that's talking to him every single day for 2 months, becoming his best friend, making sure he trusts us, getting over all his objections. And then finally he's like, okay, come to my house. And we don't usually go to properties. So how we run our business is everything's over the phone. We're locking up deals over the phone 99% of the time. But, with a spread like this, we were like, okay, we'll come up. I even went with Mike. And then it's a deal where I wanted to bring the buyer with us right away. And I wanted to make sure it's someone who closes and, doesn't care about assignment fees or anything like that and likes that area, because we didn't want to get into a situation where we're losing this deal because we couldn't sell it, or, we didn't want to risk anything going wrong on that end. So I rode there with Jimmy, we carpooled there, and then Mike went up there as well and walked it all together. And then we got a number. We walked back outside. Mike went in alone, and he was like, "Watch this, guys. I'm gonna get a." Yeah.
So
I don't know how much you want to talk about the buy side.
Well, hold on. You skipped a step though. Like Jimmy went with you because you wanted to bring your buyer with you so that you can close, right?
Okay, so I can talk about that then. I can tell the whole story then. Okay.
That's what we're talking about. So Jimmy, who's on the panel, James Daynard, who's sitting next to you.
I thought you were going to go in separately, like.
No, we'll get into that, right? So you then asked him, what would you buy it for, right?
Yeah. I was like, I think exactly how it went. We all walked outside after walking the property, and the look in Jimmy's eye was like, it's not the look like he does at some properties where they're good. They're done. They need everything. So his look was like, oh, this isn't that bad. So I walked out of there pretty confident, and then we were standing around my car, and he was like, yeah, I could probably pay like $600 for this. And then me and Mike knew we had it at least $450. So Mike's like, all right, I'm gonna go get it lower.
So you didn't tell James what you had it for, right?
But originally, before they did this, they told me the price was $550.
Yeah.
So by me going and walking the property, I raised my offer $50,000 because they also told me it was going to need, like, according to the seller, $300,000.
Yeah, that's what the seller thought. This guy thought his home needed $300,000. But yeah, Mike went in there, and it was the first actually paper contract we've gotten signed in person in like 2 years, because everything's over DocuSign usually. And when he went inside, I'm like, Jimmy, what do you think the odds are he gets it under 500? Because he didn't know at the time what we had it at, and then he comes out 425 signed. Yeah, it was insane.
But like, now there's a relationship thing here too, by the way, because Jimmy didn't sign an assignment agreement yet. He didn't do any of that kind of stuff, but he verbally told you 600, right?
Yeah. That's how I built all my business at this point, is just really, really strong relationships.
So you got a signed contract for 425, right? Jimmy had verbally told you before going into that house that he'd buy it for 600, right?
550 before 550, and then outside he was like, I could probably do 600.
Okay, so he goes in there. You come back out with an inked 425 contract, right? You're like, okay, we got this thing. But Jimmy's a man of his word. He said, okay, 600, and you buy it because he knows his numbers, right? And you got a $175,000 assignment fee from the guy on this panel too. He paid a $175,000 assignment fee. Before we get into that, because then we're going to switch over to the buyer side and what that's like. Did the seller know that you were assigning it for that much, or did he find out?
Absolutely. He knew he was like, I love when young guys make money. So it was just this like 1 in a million situation where, yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. So like, because that's one of the questions people ask as wholesalers or newer wholesalers, like, what if somebody finds out how much my assignment fee is and it's this big and all this kind of stuff? What's going to happen? And do you want to touch on that really quick?
The neighbors came up to Jimmy, right, when he was at the property. Yeah. Like, I don't remember what you told me about that. It was something about
they wanted to know if I was his son or something, and got the house for so cheap. They thought like the cousin inherited the house. It was so cheap. But
and that's because, just so on a side note, once you buy the property with an assignment, the 425 sales price is what gets recorded.
Yeah.
So everybody in the world thinks that Jimmy bought it for 425, but he's like, I bought it for 600, right? So because the assignment fee doesn't show up on title. Sorry, it doesn't show up on public record. And that's just to clarify that really quick.
But to answer your question with the sellers, yes, I get it. When you're wholesaling, a lot of times you're going in with a position that we're buying this property or partnering with an investor. That investor is the one buying the deal, and you're taking your fee up front, essentially. Um, yeah, and with sellers, typically they don't want to hear your assignment because it shows a not dependability, like that you're not actually the buyer at that point. Um, so what I do tell wholesalers that are assigning and they're concerned about that assignment fee is that really it's a buyer's closing cost. And, at the end of the day, it doesn't need to be disclosed to the seller. The only time we do consider disclosing it to the seller is if it's a distressed sale, because that's a protected lead at that point.
In our area.
In our area, at least. And I think in probably 30 to 40% of the areas around the US. And so that's the only thing, just disclosure wise. But the seller, it's at the end of the day, the seller doesn't need to see that fee.
So let's go into, and Jay, you can also chime in on this as we go into this, because this is I know there's, me, Jay, Jimmy, we're all buyers, right? So Jimmy's a hardcore, he has a company that also sources deals, but he's also a buyer, right? He invests in real estate. And Cole is, finally chipping his teeth, finally getting a property here and there that he's actually taken down. Cole and I've done 2 properties together, like as a joint venture, but we should do more. Sure.
Sorry, I should have started earlier, like 15, right? Sorry, I waited so long.
Right, yeah, catch up. So that said, like as buyers, so Jimmy, you sat there, you verbally said 600. You come out, the guy's has a 425. How didn't you lose your shit and go like, I'm not paying you $175,000 assignment fee now that I know you got it for 425?
Well, I'm big on reputation, and so the reason guys like Cole call me is because I stick to my word, right? And if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to get it done. And at the end of the day, if I'm happy, and granted, I'm an investor and a wholesaler, so I see it from both sides. But if I'm happy, and just to be clear, $175,000 is not the biggest assignment fee I've ever paid. It's we've actually paid $350,000 on one deal. But if I like the deal at 600, it was a cosmetic deal. That doesn't mean just because he got it cheaper doesn't mean that I get to participate in that, right? I had nothing to do with that lead up front. And as a buyer, I was happy with that transaction at 600 grand. If it's their job to negotiate their own fee at that point. Now,
we don't get mad when we go into a car dealership and buy a car because the car dealer may have bought it for a third of what they're selling it, or
very good
grocery store or Walmart.
Yeah, it's and so for me, I already told them I was going to close in 7 days at that price, no inspection, right? I've already done my feasibility inspection at that point. What if at the same time, what if he would have tied the deal up for 595? Does that mean I should pay him more because he's only making 5,000? No, right? And that's a very important thing for wholesalers to understand. The number on the house is the number on the house. Just because you negotiated a bad deal doesn't mean you're going to get your normal fee. You're going to get paid less. But when you negotiate a good deal, you're going to get paid more.
Right? So when you say number on the house, it means like that's what what is your buyer going to buy it for? That's the number on the house. That's what you're talking about.
Yes, correct. And so if Cole would have came out or Cole's guy came out and I said 600 and he said, well, the guy will only sell it for 597, then shit, hey guys, you're making $3,000. Right? It would have gone the other way too, right? So as an investor, I have to have that same perception of, hey, just because they got a good deal. Now, I do tell wholesalers, and we wholesale a lot of deals, the bigger the fee, the better the deal needs to be, right? If I was making a 10% return on that deal and he's making 175,000, I'd be like, hey, come on, give me a little bit of meat on this bone, right? But I like to buy at a 15% return. I'm getting it at a 20% return. So I'm already getting a little bit better margin for me on there. So who cares if he's getting a better fee? He got a better deal. I'm getting a little bit better deal. It was easy. And yeah, so everyone wins.
Yeah, I can pretty much guarantee as a buyer that if Cole came out with me with $175K assignment fee and it was only a 10% cash on cash return deal, I'd be like, yeah, go F yourself. Like this needs to change, right?
Yeah.
But at least bring it up to 15, right? So so that is a factor, right? So if you guys are a wholesaler out there, then like what any kind of return anybody's going to get on that property, that's taking all the risk. And so it is relative to that, right? But if you're a buyer, what you're also saying, Jimmy, is like if it's a 15% and that's what you buy at and that's what you said you take it at, and it works out that way, why wouldn't you buy it? Why would you get pissed off, right? If that's the number that you wanted to get it at, right?
Yeah, and that means you're working with the wrong people. If people are getting jealous of what you're doing, that's not the right team to be working with. And so, I mean, they got a good deal. They should get paid for that because they've also worked their butts off for a year and maybe didn't make that many checks, right? Like sometimes wholesalers are working for that one check a year or two checks a year. And so that fee is very important to them. And imagine if Cole and his partner only did that one deal that year. That means they would have made about $80,000 each for the year. That's a pretty normal paying job in the Pacific Northwest. But so, just make sure as a wholesaler, leave some meat on the bone if you got a bigger fee. Try to, and then just make sure you're looking at the whole picture and don't over.
Uh-oh.
After they got it for $425.
You'll never know what he just said.
That would have rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. If I'm going to make 200 and now my margin went down, I would have walked from the deal at that point.
Everything Jimmy just said was the key to success in everything, because you cut out. We'll never know what it was. But so tell all your staff at your office to get off the internet. We missed some of this, what you said, Jimmy. Sorry. But I think we got the gist of it though. But ultimately, so Jay, let's chime in a little bit too, even as buyers, right? Well, if I'm working with a wholesaler, what do you want to see from a wholesaler sending you a deal, right? Or buying a property off market, right? What can they do to work with you better?
So my big thing is.
Sorry, this is for Jay.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I want to hear what James has to say.
We'll go to him. Don't worry. He'll get his time.
Okay. So we're buying a lot from wholesalers these days. So I have a partner in Georgia and a partner in Florida who deal with most of our acquisitions, and they're both amazing at finding deals from wholesalers. So I don't take any of the credit, but we're still buying a lot of deals from wholesalers these days. And typically what I want to see is a smooth transaction. I want them to have a good relationship with the person they're buying it from, so that I don't get to the closing table and have the deal not closed because the seller finds out how much the wholesaler is making and gets pissed at me and doesn't want to close, or the seller gets to closing and doesn't realize he's supposed to be out, so he's not ready to be out of the house. I want to know the deal's going to go smoothly. That's really all I want. I don't care. A lot of people say, well, I want the wholesaler to tell me what the rehab costs are and what the ARV is. I don't care about that. I can figure that out myself. I'm not going to trust anybody else's numbers anyway. So as far as I'm concerned, the wholesaler's job is to manage that relationship with the seller and make me not have to worry about getting to the closing table and everything going smoothly on that side of the deal. I'll deal with my side of the deal. He has to deal with his side of the deal. Get me access to the property so I can see it. Get any questions answered that I need to. But other than that, wholesaler's job is mostly just find the deal and then just make sure it goes smoothly to closing.
Jimmy, you want to add?
My big thing is a picture's address. I do personally like to get what they think the renovation cost will be and the value. And the only reason I do that is because any lead that's sent to me is an opportunity. And if the wholesaler says, hey, I think it needs 60 grand of work and needs 100, and they want this price for the property, I can logically walk them down on the price so they don't also think I'm a buyer trying to lowball them. That I can say, hey, look, I like the deal, but here's the problem is it needs more than 60. Here's my budget. Here you go. And if you can get the price down, I will pay this fee. So I like to negotiate with wholesalers logically, so I have a good reputation with them. Like it's never like, oh, James is trying to lowball me. It's like, no, here's my minimum return numbers. This is why. And then also it allows me to train them to where they send me better deals going forward, because I'm like, no, your numbers are off here.
That makes sense. I know on my side, I want to know as much as I can about the property when you send it to me, so I can make a decision faster when you send it to me. So pictures are huge for me and my team. Sure. You send us 3 photos, one of the underneath the sink, one of like the one drywall piece of damage in some random room that I have no idea, and then the back of the house, right? And we like, I'm out. So let's like, okay, when can I go see the house? Like, let's go look at it. But if you send me 100 photos, like in a Dropbox or Google Drive, and it's like thoroughly nice, and just walking through it, then we can make a decision a lot faster for the rehab. Plus also I want your rehab budget if you have it, any other key things about it, right? but more importantly, I'd prefer not to be one of 1,000 people you emailed it out to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Cole was able to get 175K. I'm not saying there's a wrong way to do that, right? I'm just not saying don't do that. I'm saying I don't like that. And why Cole got such a big assignment fee is that he knew his buyer, right? And he has a relationship with his buyer, and he brought his buyer to the house, right? That he trusted. If he did that with 1,000 random ass people, then it's going to be an issue, right? But for me, and if I'm Jimmy, I feel special because I'm like, dude, I got Cole bringing me to a property, just me. So therefore, I know I can have rights to say yes or no on it, and I want to keep doing business with Cole, right? In that case, and I've had the best relationships with people that do that, and they also know on the other side that I'm going to buy if I say yes, right? And similar to Jimmy, I learned that from Jim for years, right? I've seen him do it multiple times in his business. If he says something, he's going to do it, right? Because it's the relationship, long-term thinking. Too many people in this business that are buyers, right, create horrible relationships because they just like back out on deals, verbals, like they don't close. And you got to think what that wholesaler, that acquisition person did. They might have spent their life savings to get that one deal because they're a new investor or whatever, and they tied it up to the seller. So the seller thinks it's going to close too, right? And then the wholesaler, unfortunately, blasted out to 1,000 investors who they don't know, right? And then that investor, that random new investor, doesn't close, or that jerk investor doesn't close, and it affects everything, right? So I believe in having a qualified list of buyers, and that will close, and your business will be better. But it works both ways, I guess. What do you guys think?
I think that, I mean, especially as still being newer to the business, the quickest way to evolve and grow and accelerate is relationships. So like me and Mike's whole thing is like, we don't care if we lose $5,000 or $10,000 on a few deals here and there, just because we didn't maximize every deal by a massive email blast. Long term, we're way better off building really good relationships with 5 to 10 people. Where especially now we want to get into flipping and I mean title, like the title and escrow people we use now are only, it's pretty much you don't find out about her unless you get referred to her, and so it's one reason as a whole newer investor I've been able to scale so quickly and accelerate and evolve is because of relationships. So there's no right and wrong way to do it, but in my opinion, there kind of is.
Agreed. So, and especially when you're newer, brand new, I mean, you were 19, right?
Yep.
Like that's like half your life ago. Yep. You built your business through those relationships by asking guys like us and Jimmy and all those other, like, what do you do? What do you do? You took a haircut on some deals so you can learn longer, like all those things. And that's one of the reasons why we've always liked you, is because like we see big things out of that, out of you experiencing that, because you weren't just like trying to make all your money on one deal. Like you were learning, growing, asking questions and so forth. So, which is huge. But now that said, let's jump into some of it's 1 o'clock. We've been at this for an hour, right? And typically right around like 45 minutes to an hour, we start getting into the viewers' questions, right? Specifically. So we could jump into that. One of the first questions, Eric D, he says, with talks, and I'm hoping I understand this question. So if I mess it up, Eric, then we might move on. But with talks of the possible wave of foreclosures and forbearances and all that great stuff, there's a lot of forbearances going on in the U.S. right now. There's a lot of really frustrated people because of the pandemic. How do you pivot your conversations and marketing to your target market due to all that? So we don't, like, I guess what he's also trying to say is, being sensitive to the needs of the person. If people are in forbearance, maybe, like, how do you talk to somebody that's being pissed off due to the pandemic? They might be losing their job, they can't work, and their house payment is from forbearance. Like, how do you talk to somebody like that?
Like a human, just like you would to your grandma or aunt, or that was going through that same situation. So really get to understand and know their situation, and don't try to just make a sale off the bat. Yeah. And that's at least what we're doing right now, is taking the time to really dig into their situation in the most human way possible.
Yeah, and a lot of times you don't even need to bring that up. I mean, if we mail to a list and we get a call, we're not going to say, we know you're in pre-foreclosure or your house is going to auction in 2 weeks. They know why they're calling. We know why they're calling. At that point, it's we want to solve a problem, not rub the problem in your face. So if you have to have a discussion about that, and sometimes you do, because if they're in foreclosure or pre-foreclosure, then there's probably a bunch of late fees tacked onto their mortgage and their payoff, and they're going to have to figure out what their payoff is. And sometimes they get surprised that I thought I owed 200, I owe 250 because of all these late fees and charges. So you may have to have those discussions, but generally speaking, you don't talk. You don't have to talk about the reason that they're having problems. That's, they know it, you know it, and just focus on the solution.
I like what Cole said. That's perfect. Talk to them like a human, right? I always say any kind of distressed situations, there's two sales. One is selling yourself and getting them to realize that they might need to sell, and then working on the house from there. So the primary focus should be on them as people, as human beings, and what you can do to assist them. The byproduct could be buying their house, right? And so, like what Cole said, hit it right on the head. They're all human beings.
Real estate transactions are very long transactions, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8. If you're doing short sales, maybe 30 weeks. And the only way to make it through there where everybody's happy is to have a real relationship with the person. And so, yeah, that's probably the best advice right there, what Cole and James said.
Awesome advice. All right, let's take Anthony Paterno. I like this. Let's get to the basics here. How do you go about asking title companies for a list? Because you guys all mentioned that earlier. Like, that's one of the cheapest, most affordable ways to get some sort of list, right? To be able to market to, or door knock, or cold call, or whatever it might be. I don't know any title companies. Can I just reach out and ask for a specific list? I want to preface this statement for one thing. It's different where you are geographically, because some parts of the world in the US, they use attorneys for closing, and like maybe you don't talk to the actual title itself because you talk to an attorney instead, who then has a title rep or whatever. So like sometimes that's an issue. But that said, in our neck of the woods, we could probably answer that question pretty easily. Who wants to take that?
Well, we did. I just emailed when we were getting started and we needed a simple list. I just emailed a title rep and said, "Hey, what's the most popular list people ask you for, and can you send it to me?" And it was like $7. So I mean, that's what we did.
I guess the other thing, you just like start emailing a bunch of title reps and seeing. Yeah, I mean, where's the shame in that?
Yeah, and one thing you do though I would do is make sure the title company understands what lead you're trying to get though, because you can get too much from them. Yeah. So spend a little bit of time, spend a week figuring out exactly who you want to target, make it very clear to them. And the more clear you are, the better list the title company can be. And then you can grab it from any title. All major title companies have searching functions that can pull those lists for you.
Yeah, and some of them, they actually have like online versions of it that you can mess around with. But I know on us, when we were starting out marketing up in Washington, I was like, I'm going to get houses in Federal Way, Washington. I asked the title company to send me, the list for that. And they sent me all of Federal Way, Washington. And you're like, cool. That's a lot of stuff. So there's like 40,000 people on the list, or 50,000, like the stuff too. I'm like, I'm going to mail 1,000 letters out. Which one of these 40,000 people do I choose 1,000 out of, right? So getting what Jimmy just said, narrowing it down, telling them like, this is what I'm looking for, this is that kind of stuff. And they can help you out. And some of them will take the time to help you out. And some will be like, we don't have the time to help you figure it out, right? Just tell us what you want. So, and find the reps that'll help you, because they want to build a relationship. They're out there. Not all of them have something to do. So we'll work with it. And I guess one next step that's not on the question on that is, what do you get on a typical title list? What do they typically send you? Like, as far as what data do you normally get?
It's usually address, seller's names, secondary address form or mailing address. We get the tax record information. So it'll be like square footage, bed, bath count, lot size. And then we always have mortgage amounts, percentage to tax assessed value.
Okay. So, yeah, and those are all things they can give you, which is great.
Yes.
It's not always 100% accurate, but it's like 90, 80, something like that. But for depending on what it is. So, but all you're doing is getting an address and a name. So if somebody's direct mailing, that's great. But if somebody wants to cold call or text message or send emails, Cole, what do they do with that list?
You got to get a skip trace, 100%.
And what's the best place to do that at?
Best place to do that's exactskip.com. That's what we use internally in our business. And it brings back like five to 10 phone numbers, updated mailing address. So you make sure if you are mailing, you're mailing to the right place, and you're able to cold call and text and do all the other stuff as well.
That's exactskip.com. So they can get if they upload a title list to that, how fast do they get their emails, names, numbers?
A couple hours to a business day. Yeah.
Okay. So a day, whatever. And then they get back and they get all the text messaging and email numbers that they want, right?
Yeah.
Which, keep in mind, like, I'm going to say this one more time. Know your laws with the DNC. Do not call, like, text messaging laws, all that kind of stuff. There are services out there that can help you with that as well. So, all right. So good question there. What's another good question? Are you seeing more people selling on terms right now?
I'm not. People want their cash. Or people, the only thing I'm seeing on terms I'm getting better deals on is land. Other than that, people want to cash out and move on. So a little quicker.
Jay, you're nodding your head.
Yeah. So, and it's funny because I was going to say yes to that, but then when James said land, I realized that, yeah, we bought several lots on terms recently. So it is, land is a little bit different. I think a lot of land owners, people that have done what's called land banking, where they buy land hoping to hold it and sell it for a profit later. A lot of them realize that we may be nearing the end of the cycle and are looking to sell just to get inventory off their books and get their cash. But a lot of them aren't selling out of desperation, so they are willing to sell on terms. So yeah, we've bought a bunch of land in the last couple of weeks on terms, and we've bought a couple rental properties on terms as well. So not the kind of terms we were seeing 2010, 11, 12, 13, but certainly better than we were seeing the 5-6 years in between that and now.
Awesome. Preston's asking if you're wholesaling, are your buyers still buying? We kind of already talked about this, but are all your buyers still buying, or is something different?
Yeah, that's again why I like to kind of build relationships with buyers, because a lot of especially when this all started, and I don't know if it was nationwide, but at least locally, a lot of hard money companies kind of froze up. So most buyers stopped buying, at least temporarily. But right now, I think most people are buying again, and especially the ones that are always buying. Yeah.
Awesome. And they should know your buyer. That goes back to knowing your buyers, right? Yep. I know when we had that quick shutdown, a lot of buyers would have bought, but they didn't have funding.
Yep.
And because all the funding got shut down for most hard money lenders out there. And I know for me, like for about a week, I'm like, shit, right? And so but we got it figured out. And then for, a lot of other buyers like, I'll buy, but we can't, right? The deals were falling apart. So you learn really fast as a wholesaler who your real buyers are. In my opinion, during the lockdown, when they really got their stuff together.
During a pandemic, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Tanya is asking, is there I don't know the answer to this. Is there a comprehensive book about wholesaling that you would recommend for somebody who is just starting out?
Cole should write one.
No, there is a good one my buddies put together. You go to Amazon, you type in, it's like, I forget the name of it, but type in all in wholesaling on Amazon. It should come up. It's a good book.
Did Anson Young, did he make one for Bigger Pockets or something like that? I can't remember. You're looking at the shelf of all the BP books, Jay. So go to biggerpockets.com and go to the bookstore there. They got a book on everything, so they might have a really good one there, probably from one of our good contributors. I think Anson Young did one. And also check out Cole's Friends one as well. So that's good. With the Matthews asking, with the issues of the eviction moratorium and foreclosure moratorium, how has this changed the value you offer on deals, if at all?
What do you mean value? Like what?
I guess what are you offering? Like, are you trying to get a discount on that stuff? Are you trying to get? Are you?
I mean,
we talked about this, but
anything with tenants in it, we're offering 20% less than we would, because there's additional risk now in that deal, because that asset could become non-performing. And so, we're definitely, I mean, I know in Seattle, we're picking up cap rates at least 2 points higher than we were prior to COVID.
I know you mentioned, we were talking about this the other day, where you have a 12 unit that you own, right?
Yeah.
And you bought it right before lockdown. You bought it as a value add. It already had issues, right? And as soon as lockdown happened, I know this isn't a rental property panel,
this is better,
but it is good to know, because this is the pain that some landlords are facing right now if you're sourcing deals. Can you give me not the entire full-on explanation, but give us the Cliff Notes versions of what's going on with that 12 unit?
What ties into the question, why are we trying to buy it cheaper? Or for your wholesaler, why are your buyers trying to buy it cheaper? This is why. So I bought a 12 unit, Tacoma, Washington, great location, great upside. I got 6 of the 12 people vacated. I started renovating 6 townhome style units. We put quite a bit of money in each unit. The rents were at $850 each when we bought them. Rents are now $1,595 to $1,695 for the nice stabilized one. But the problem is we got 6 of the people out, then COVID happened, and I got 6 tenants in there that are, I would say, a little bit rougher, would be the right words. And so now what's happened is we have 6 units that are completely renovated, but the people are so rough next door. For example, we've had 2 drive-by shootings at the building since owning it. Had quite a bit of drug activity outside the building. I can't rent any of my 6 units for the higher rent because no one wants to live next to these people. And I can't move the people out because of the protection law. So this deal that I should
moratoriums, yeah.
Because through the moratorium. So, what we're having to do is, so we're in the middle, right? We took down our bridge financing. It's more expensive, and now I can't perm finance it. And so that's why wholesalers, if you're picking up stuff like that, get it cheaper because we need to hedge in an extra layer of risk in that deal.
Yeah. So if you're also looking for a 12 unit in Tacoma right now, get it for a really steep discounted price. Just hit up Jimmy.
I won't even sell it. I'll hang on to it. You got to weather the storm, right?
Well, yeah, and you can, right? That's the thing. But there's some landlords that couldn't.
Yeah.
There's some of your buyers that probably would have bought that from you if you wholesaled it. That would be like devastated financially right now. Yeah. And they might be and you might be buying it back from them, right, in some capacity. But
can I tell a cautionary tale? Because I always like talking about the mistakes I made because that's the things we learn from. We were talking earlier about what can wholesalers do to make our lives easier. I am hopefully closing on a 3-house package today where it's sort of a wholesaler. He's actually a commercial lender at a portfolio bank that's kind of brokering the deal for us. But he's kind of served as the wholesaler. And basically, he got us the leases for these properties when we locked it up about a month ago. And we love these properties because they're like $300 a month under market rent. What he didn't tell us, what we found out today at the closing table, was the seller renewed 2 of those leases in the last week at locked in that same $300 under market for another year. So our plan was to kick out those tenants when we bought the property today or raise their rents, get $300 a month more. He renewed 2 of the leases, didn't tell us, and the wholesaler didn't know and didn't think to ask and didn't think to tell him, look, don't renew any leases until the deal closes. So that's something that, like, this again wasn't really a wholesaler. He was the bank guy. But if a wholesaler did that, I'd probably never work with that wholesaler again because that puts my business at risk. My fault. Everything's my fault if it's bad and it happens. But that wholesaler is somebody I probably wouldn't work with again.
All right, let's go on to the next question. So I want to give this one specifically to Cole, and also for time's sake, we're just going to leave it on Cole. What CRM software do you guys use in business to keep info on different sellers, campaigns? What are you using for progress, KPIs, all that kind of stuff?
Yes, we custom built out a Podio internally. It's amazing. It's awesome. It's by far the best out there, and it runs everything. And that's why you have to come to the expo, because we're going to be releasing it at the expo, and it's going to be discounted as well. So
if somebody, because you are taking on some beta people for it. So anyways, backing up, the CRM is amazing. I've seen it. It's freaking awesome. There's a lot of stuff out there you can waste your money on and stuff too, and spend a ton of money if you're looking for a full service CRM. But if somebody wanted to learn, it's RAI Butler, I believe it is, or RAI Upgrade.
RAIupgrade.com, yep.
Yeah. And it's getting launched officially at the expo, but there is a beta group. They can find out more about it. If they wanted to reach out to you directly right now and ask you more about it, so maybe they can see it or mess around with it or even maybe get a preview, is there anything they can do to reach out to you?
Yeah, Instagram's the best. It's just Cole Rude Johnson on Instagram.
Cole Rude Johnson on Instagram. Message him there. He'll follow up with you and so forth. So if you're interested in that. Good stuff. All right. We're going to ask 1 or 2 more questions tops. Where do you get your probate leads, Jimmy?
So we have to hand pull them. So every week we hand pull the leads out of, I think it's from the obituary. I'm not really the back end lead guy when it comes to that stuff, but I think the most important thing is hand pulling them quickly because there's a delay through the title company. So we actually go down and get them ourselves.
So that's you have a team for that, right, on your side?
Yes, yeah, we do. We do have it's basically like a scraper that will get it for us.
And then Cole, do you guys deal with probate at all?
Yeah, there's a software you can use to buy them. It's Rebo Gateway, but they're pretty inaccurate.
Mhm.
Like half of them will be somewhat accurate, but we do buy them and throw them in just because it's not that many, so it's easy to do. But they're not. It's way more accurate if you go get them yourself.
Yeah,
Yep.
from my experience and talking to other guys over the years with other companies, is that the best and fastest way for probate is, unfortunately, you have to have a system to get them yourself, like
Yep.
what Jimmy was saying, for the most accurate side of it. But I will throw this one caveat. I'm sure Jimmy can also answer. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I believe you got to handle probates a little differently than you would handle other lead
For
sources
sure.
in some capacity, right? You can't just be like, sorry for bad luck. You want to sell your house, right? So you can't,
Be respectful, you guys. This is not like, hey, I heard your dad died. Well, you want to sell his house? Like, I mean, it just, yeah, that's,
I saw your dad had a house free and clear, and I know he just died yesterday, so I'll buy it cash right now.
yeah, just be respectful. Don't harass people. Like, it's just, hey, we're a company that does these options. Reaching out to probate lawyers is a good idea too, because, you want to show dependability, ease, because, an off-market cash sale is a very good thing for at least 10% of the probates. And most people know that. But the other 90%, talk to them, check in with them. If they're doing something else, move on. Don't harass them, because that is not the time to be harassing people.
Yep. What is Tony's asking? What is your minimum wholesale fee?
Ours is like 10 grand. We want to see at least 10 grand on the deal.
Yeah, ours is 15. Yep. Oh no, if it's internally generated, it's 15 because we have more cost. If it's through another like a kind of a partner wholesaler, we have a 10.
Yeah, so like a co-wholesale.
Yep.
Okay. And then, all right, let's get one more. See, can we answer more? Are any of you guys using virtual assistants? Matthew's asking.
Yeah, we use like 12.
Yeah, 12 virtual assistants. All right, so yes, the answer is yes on that one. Jimmy, do you even know what a virtual assistant is, or?
This is a constant topic at our office. I literally had a 2-hour meeting about it last night. We
Like
do
on
not
to
use
find out
them.
what a virtual assistant is?
No, like me typing, I'm very anal about, like, I want things done a very specific way. And so I was like typing out exactly what I want this virtual assistant domino effect. This happens, this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. And I'm getting them their own way of getting efficiencies done because I'm just getting too in the weeds.
I'm
So.
exactly the same as James. But though we do use one for basically just compiling data and putting together lists for us.
I've used virtual assistants on and off for years. And usually it's for task situations. Like I need people to complete like this one thing or whatever it might be. I am in the market to get an executive assistant as a virtual assistant because I'm realizing the physical executive assistant situation really isn't needed anymore for what we do. And so I'd rather have one that's virtual, right? In that capacity, but we do use them, but it's always been great. Like Upwork.com, I think is great for like, I need to get this Excel spreadsheet done in this certain way. Who wants to do it for $5 or whatever, right? And you get somebody to do that. And there's a lot of things you can do with VAs on a lot of capacities. So good stuff for that. And I think that's what we got. So wrapping up, everybody's coming to the badassexpo.com. Get your discounted ticket, FORE 26, good for you until Friday night this week. And Jay, do you have any final thoughts for these guys? Any final questions you want to ask when you're not muted?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So I think the question a lot of people would like to ask is, so let's say I was ready to get started doing some off-market acquisitions today. What's the first thing? What are some steps I can take today, tomorrow, next week to kind of just get started? What should I be reading? Who should I be talking to? What should I be doing?
For me, what I tell people is you want to just start talking to people. You want to start talking to people that own homes. And don't worry about right away the first few months if you're doing deals. It's just about getting comfortable with people, talking to them about what you do, which is providing services to selling their homes in a different kind of way. So a lot of people will just read 10 books and watch every YouTube video, which is all great. You want to make sure you're doing revenue generating activities when you're starting out. So I always tell people, start calling people, start knocking on doors. If we're not in a pandemic, start knocking on doors and getting in front of people.
Yeah, and listen to Bigger Pockets. There's a lot of really talented speakers that come on here and give you tips. Like, Cole, I've been doing this a lot longer than Cole, and I get tips from Cole all the time, right? Like, there's a new wave of people always coming through with new ideas. They're going to help you narrow down, like Charles, at this event, this expo, the real estate expo, that's going to have very talented speakers telling you that will help you eliminate that first 50% of wasted time and kind of narrow you down, and then start with the title list, start practicing calling. That's what I did. When I got started, someone gave me a list of foreclosures, no training, and I went right to work and started knocking on doors. And it took me 1 year to get my first deal done.
Wow.
I probably had thousands of FUs because I was knocking foreclosures and not one deal, but it's just consistently going and just getting out and doing the work. People want to overthink this stuff too much. Just work. You have to have work ethic, and you need to sit down and grind. And if you don't have that, don't do this business.
Yep.
So get your list, make your calls, put yourself on a schedule. I had to knock my 40 doors a day, period. If I didn't hit 40, I was not going home. So, make your schedule, hold yourself accountable, and then get going.
Love that. And I want to add one last thing. We didn't hear a ton from Cole. I would love to know more about his personal story, even how he started at 19 and what he's gone through to get 100 deals and stuff like that. And unfortunately, I need your guys' help, right? Reach out to Bigger Pockets and say you want him on the podcast, because they rejected him, and because I'm friends with all those guys, so it's fine. I'm like, oh, let's get Cole on the podcast. They're like, his tonality is too low. He talks too slow. Like, so let's help Cole get more experience with that, so we get him on the Bigger Pockets podcast as soon as possible, so you guys can hear his personal story. So reach out. So not to make fun of you, Cole.
You guys, Cole is one of the smartest people I've met in this business, and I've been doing this a long time. So, yeah.
I think I'm under the age limit, is what they told me.
Yeah, under the age limit. Yeah,
right. Or you have to have facial hair. It's one of the two.
Nah, you're doing better. I remember when we had you on a live broadcast like 4, 5, 6 months ago, and I'm like, so tell me, and you'd give me like a 1-sentence answer with no explanation. I'd be like, come on, talk more. But you're doing better. Not to put you on blast in front of everybody watching this right now.
No, I love it. I can take it.
Take it. So, anyways, maybe Jay will get you on the Bigger Pockets business podcast, and you can talk about KPIs and tracking and so forth.
No, I think we can get him on the real estate podcast.
I already talked to Kevin, dude. So Kevin's the one that shut him down. But anyways, we'll work on it. This is part of that trial, and also the expo, part of that trial. We're going to build him up, and we're going to get him on the BP podcast so you guys can hear his real story and what's going on with him, and it's going to be great. So, anyways, besides knocking Cole down a few rungs, Cole, how can people get a hold of you?
My email is cole@hellopad, HELLOPAD.com. I'm super responsive to email or Instagram messages. Those are really the only two ways. I don't like texting very much, so one of those two.
Mr. Dainard.
My Instagram handle is jdainflips, JDAINFLIPS. We post a lot of projects on there, so you can kind of check out our walkthroughs or check out our website, heatondainard.com, HEATONDAINARD.com.
And Jay Scott.
So most people know how to get in touch with me. Just check me out.
Good.
Check me out on this webinar every week.
That's right.
Yeah. So check out the Bigger Pockets Business Podcast. My wife and I host that, so very proud of that. I can be reached email j@jscott.com, website jscott.com, and Instagram jscott_123flip.
And you can reach me, Tarl Yarber, on Instagram @TarlYarber. I am the only one there. You can also check out my company, Fixated RE, Fixated Real Estate, on Facebook and Instagram. We do post house stuff, and we do these weekly here on Bigger Pockets, as well as Zoom, as well as everywhere across the nation. We're going to do next week, we're going to talk about turnkey investments. We're going to have an amazing couple guests, right? One of them in particular does a few hundred turnkeys a year, and that's a topic that I actually don't know much about. So I'm interested to find out about that, because that's the middle of the U.S., right? That's the section when you said $175,000 assignment fee. They're like, I can't even get like a $4,000 assignment fee. Like that's that part, right? And so we're going to talk about, we're not going to ignore you guys anymore, middle of the US. We're going to be there for you next week with Turnkey Investments, which is one of the best places to do it, is in those markets. So check that out next week, 12 p.m. You guys will all get an email if you were part of this registration, so you guys can become a part of it. Again, check out the expo and at badassexpo.com, and we'll see you guys all there. Bye.